Morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, it's good to see
Oh,
you.
it's good to see you too. Just what a beautiful, beautiful day. That sun is glorious.
I know, I think it's supposed to be a heat wave today or over the next few days, and it's just so nice. So nice to be able to go out in the garden a bit and yeah, gives a good
Yeah.
perspective.
Well, and sermon writing will be happening in the sunshine a little bit
Oh,
later. So
so calm.
I'm sure there'll be some inspiration from nature. That's normally what happens when I'm outside. Watch this space.
Yeah, funny that.
How are you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, thank you. I'm doing okay. I think I've had a bit of a flat week, just generally. I think a few things really, but I mean it's not the biggest. I mean it's not the biggest issue in the world at all. But we were supposed to be on holiday at the moment, um, which
No. Oh, my heart is going out to you. I know where you should have been.
yeah, so we booked an amazing 2.5 week holiday in Bali, which it's just because considering what's going on is not important. And I've got a few days annual leave coming up at the end of the week, which would be great. But I think that's just on my mind a little bit. Like I should be on a beach with a cocktail right now,
No.
but it's okay because nobody is.
Oh,
And
well, then
more
that makes it okay
importantly,
then.
yeah, because that would be not okay. How are you doing?
Oh, good. I feel, on the whole, I feel quite peaceful and calm and
Hmm.
really settled into a good rhythm. But I have to make a confession, I'm afraid. I went to do my weekly shop. I've been really lucky that over the last few weeks I've been able to get a click and collect slot, but not this week. So I ventured with the great and the good to the supermarket, and oh, it was just a nightmare. It was too quiet. So when it's busy, everyone seems to get that there are rules to follow.
Oh my gosh, all these new rules
I
that,
know,
yeah,
like one-way systems
yeah.
work for me naturally. Believe it or not, I am a very obedient person, so I do like to follow instruction. And so when people are going the wrong way down the one-way system, it brings out a rage inside. And
Yeah.
I kind of I said to one person, do you realize it's a one-way system? To which she said, is it? And I just thought, of course it is. You can see the.
Yeah.
I
Look at
just,
the arrows.
like the 25 other people who came the wrong way, I just kept quiet and just smiled and nodded. But there was that. And
Oh,
then the other thing is, I've had a couple of experiences over the last week where I've been mansplained.
oh
Now,
no.
I won't give the detail, but
No.
any woman watching will know that mansplaining is when you say something and a man has to explain back to you either what you meant when you said it or having to say exactly the same thing, but it sounds better when it comes from a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that has happened to me a couple of times in the last week. And so I was really challenged on Monday's morning prayer when I read from Luke's Gospel his story that he's telling the people who have just listened to his Sermon on the Mount. And then he talks about how we should treat other people. And this is what he says about, do good to other people, even if they're not doing good to you.
Oh yeah.
And he says, do good, give, expect nothing in return.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, because then he goes on to say, give, it will be given to you.
Mm,
The measure you use will be the measure used back to you. And I thought, oh gosh, that means I've got to love without expectation. That means I've got to love the mansplainers. That means I've got to love the people who don't go one way in Tesco. Love, love,
yeah.
love without expectation. And so that I think is my kind of confession of that's really hard sometimes.
Yeah. And that thing of expectation is so hard because you kind of do stuff out of what you think is right, but naturally have these wants and needs yourself and expect everybody in some ways, whether you expect it consciously or unconsciously, and it can become really challenging. So I really identify with that. In some ways, it really resonates to what I've been thinking about as well. But maybe slightly differently, I've been listening to Pray As You Go this week, which is an amazing resource if anyone hasn't used it, and I'm sure we've spoken about it before.
Yeah.
But they were reflecting and reading Psalm 139, and they guide you through a reflection. And what they wanted us to do was to sit in the kind of silence, and they have some like really nice music playing, and just think upon the fact of that God delights in you. And I have to say, at first I was like, oh, I find this quite uncomfortable, just to sit and be like, oh wow, God loves me so much because I'm amazing. And at first I was a bit like, oh, but actually after a while it just allowed me to think about the origin of love, which we believe is God, and that God is the one that loves us and loves us exactly as we are, and that he delights in us, but not just in me and that superficial, oh, I'm amazing, because if you ask Jack, we know that it's not true. But actually that he delights in me and my whole character. So for me, and as we were talking about this earlier, you kind of reminded me that first line of Psalm 139, you search me and you know me. So it's like nothing's a surprise to God, nothing that I do, or like a shadow side, or something that I do that isn't great, isn't a great surprise, because he searched me and he knows me, yet he still loves me. And that for me was this really amazing moment to think, well, and actually from what you were saying, God doesn't have necessarily these expectations on love for us, which is a really good thing. He loves freely, and we receive that love freely. And I guess it's how we then give out that love that we've received freely. But I guess for me, that kind of taking a moment just to consider and maybe bask in that moment of, God delights in me and all of me.
Yeah, and when we talk about love, we were saying earlier, weren't we, that we could say, well, I love a bar of chocolate, or I love watching Judge Judy. Oh no, that's another confession that's just slipped out. But we have this kind of word that means love that can feel quite superficial. And then there's another kind of love which we might feel for our family or our spouses or our children. There is this love that is about loving the very bones of us. I mean, that's what the Psalm says. I knew you when you were being knit together. I know everything. And that's a love that is deep and is about the whole of who we are. That you were saying earlier about loving the character that we are, not just that, Laura, you are amazing. Say that. And as well as being amazing, God loves the very depths of you, the character of you, the very soul, the very bones of you. That's the love, isn't it? That's the love.
Absolutely. And I think there's a really good distinction that we were talking about earlier. I sort of fall into the temptation of maybe saying, oh, I know I'm like this, but God loves me. And I think there was something really helpful that you said about, actually it's and God loves you. So
exactly.
It's not,
sometimes we can say that we've got these shadow sides to us, that or if only I didn't, when I go to the shop, get really cross at somebody going the wrong way because they're not following rules, and if only I didn't get frustrated when I feel that somebody is mansplaining or whatever it is. If only. And there's all that stuff that everyone has got that is our shadow side, and sometimes we can think, well, if only I didn't have that, but if only I didn't have that, and yet the fact that for God it's and that we have these parts of our characters, our behaviors, our choices that are still not redeemed. We've still got those parts of us where we fall again and again and again, and we believe in a God who loves and redeems and restores and recreates everything. But there's no diminishing the truth, but there's holding all of it not in a place of shame, but in a place of shadow being brought out into light.
Yeah. And actually, I've been reflecting with other people this week about shame, and how shame is this thing that says, oh, I'm just bad. It's like the I am, and it becomes your identity. And actually, that's not what God's love does. It doesn't. God's love allows us to see that, yeah, we might have this thing that's not great, and God loves us. It doesn't keep you. Shame keeps you in a place of not feeling you're deserving of love, or not feeling like you're deserving of then giving that love or receiving it from God or from other people. And I think I've fallen in the trap. Oh, I fall into this trap all the time, actually, but of that whole thing of, you know, in the past I was really like this and that wasn't great, but then I met Jesus and everything was okay. And there's still, for me, this challenge of saying, no, that's still part of me. That's, God was still working then, and God still loves me now. And those aspects still creep in some ways, not in the same way, but actually that God is still loves me and has loved me in all of that.
Yeah. This sometimes happens when people want to make a confession, and they could have been carrying a story round for many, many years that they have felt has shaped and defined them. And when they come to want to share a confession, which takes a huge amount of courage, actually, and it's not for everyone, but for some people it's really helpful, we really diminish that story if we say, but that doesn't matter now because God loves you. Actually, what matters is that there is a truth, and it could be that they have hurt someone, that they have made choices that have had really difficult consequences. What matters is that remaining a truth with and a story of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those bits of our story, that God was always there, God was never absent, and continues to be there, and continues to love us, and continues to want to restore us. Bringing those stories out, bringing those shadow sides out into that beautiful, glorious light can just be so transforming.
Yeah.
And it's Ascension Day tomorrow. I mean, there's a story of transformation.
Absolutely. And we were reflecting earlier of Jesus ascended to God with the scars of what he had been through, those scars representing all the stuff in the world that wasn't great. And actually, that's how he came to God, in that love, with those scars. It wasn't just, they didn't sort of vanish, which actually I love that. There's a brokenness that Jesus goes to God in his ascension, of it not being completely whole. There comes the scars of what's been, and God welcomed him in, and he sits at the right hand of God. And that's just maybe an amazing image to kind of, for all of us to think about this week, of we will meet God with our scars, in that God has always loved us through with those scars as well.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, isn't it, that with our imperfections, even now, with those shadow sides, with those moments of impatience, with those moments of judgment, we can bring all of that before God, and actually it does change our being.
Yeah.
By accepting that, well, God, if you love me with those imperfections, if I truly believe you love the very bones of me, I can love others.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Oh, wow, that's been an amazing chat today.
Yeah. Whistle stop tour.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we just offer all of that to anybody who's listening, and maybe there's a place even now where you're feeling some imperfection, where you're feeling some brokenness, maybe even where you're feeling shame. And we invite you, as we do, to bring that into a place of love, to know that you are loved, you are accepted, you are of value. And may you know God's blessing, and for both of us too, as we carry on with this day. And we really look forward to seeing you all again next week. Lots of love, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.